Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Real Marketing, the only marketing firm recommended exclusively by the Institute. Real Marketing utilizes over 25 years of expertise, and their products are built and customized for you to dominate any neighborhood, anywhere. Go to realmarketingforyou.com. That's realmarketing, the number 4, you.com. Also, look for past A State of Mind episodes with CEO David Collins as our guest. Hi, Jack. It's good to see you as always.
Hi, Tami. Great to see you too.
So we're going to talk about outdoors today, and I think it's the perfect opportunity to start with a little cliche. How's the weather?
The weather's terrific, and as I said on the onset of our conversation a few minutes ago, it was really hard to come into the office today because it is a picture-perfect day. This week has been sunny weather in Nashville, nice and warm in the daytime, cool, chilly nights in the evening, perfect for a fire. It's the perfect combination.
Excellent. And it just reinforces the importance of spending time outdoors and enjoying that. So we're going to spend just a little time indoors, and hopefully we will share some good information with the audience today. So, you know, we're just finishing the first quarter of 2023, and everybody's talking about the recent shift, but lots of reports coming out about what changes came through the pandemic that are staying. And one of the most significant things was the desire, particularly in higher end consumers, to have safe, secure, clean outdoor space and access. So that's kind of sparking the conversation today that we're also seeing in real practice. And so do you see that to be true, Jack? Tell me what your client focus is about.
Yeah, I think so. We've talked about this, living and surviving a kind of a post-COVID world, because for a couple of years there was no normal. And it's really interesting because I think a lot of us are kind of geared to be outdoor people, just by nature, we're wired that way. But during COVID, a lot of us were kind of forced outdoors, so to speak, because we were trying to stay out of cars, out of small office spaces, and in outside wherever possible and 6 feet away, during COVID. And so it's interesting because a lot of folks who hadn't really spent a lot of time thinking about what is my outside experience like suddenly realized, we're spending a lot more time outside. And for a lot of folks, it just kind of stuck. And I think that there has long been a focus on, outdoor living and being, just kind of tied into the green spaces, if you will, but never as much as I think we've seen over the last couple of years as we enter the COVID generation, so to speak.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And so most of the listeners know that I'm from Florida. And so we have kind of an expectation of year-round outdoor space. Homes are expected to have swimming pools and, outdoor grills and that sort of thing. But we saw that really ramp up as the price point goes up. Now you've got those types of outdoor features that are even more elaborate and even more expensive than the indoor things. So outdoor kitchens are huge for us. What about in your market?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, homes up to around $1.5 million or so, you don't see that very much. Once you start hitting that $2 million mark and above, becomes a very common feature to see outdoor kitchens. And it's very interesting too, architecturally speaking, in the Middle Tennessee market, up until the mid 90s, it was very commonplace to see decks behind houses. I had a deck or a patio. Since that time, the focus has been on covered outdoor living and year-round outdoor living. And so with year-round outdoor living and the covered spaces, yeah, absolutely, the $2 million mark and higher based on our current market, where the market is at the moment, outdoor kitchens has become a huge amenity that people expect.
On that outdoor kitchen thing, I want to have a little fun and share some of the extreme things that we're seeing in outdoor kitchens. I saw a full-on gas-powered, almost industrial-sized wok right next to the regular grill that also had some other components, and I've seen built-in green eggs. What's the wildest thing that you've seen in an outdoor kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see kind of a mirror image to what we see inside the home, but in the outdoor area. And it's interesting to see all the brands that have popped up. So today, for example, we're about to list a new home, or new listing rather, here in Brentwood, Tennessee, and the outdoor kitchen has a wolf grill. So it's a wolf grill that looks like a wolf range with the trademark red knobs.
Red knobs.
So to get it out briefly out with the red knobs, yeah, and a Viking hood over top of the wolf range. So it's interesting that not only are you seeing we expect to have an outdoor kitchen, but we also expect to see these luxury brands that we have come to know and love inside the homes as well.
And that's really, really, really significant when you've got those brand players coming in. So this is definitely not your $150 grill from Home Depot.
No.
Right? This is, and when you talk about the deck and the patio, right, like a concrete slab just out the back door, as that price goes up, there's a big expectation shift, and I'm seeing a lot more outdoor dining seating, right, like almost built-in huge covered structures with a table for, like, you think it would be Martha Stewart's house, right? But are you seeing that kind of outdoor entertaining?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting too, because the furniture and the furnishings that you're seeing in outdoor living have they've gone through a metamorphosis to where they used to look like, deck chairs and metal tables and things of that nature. And a lot of the new materials being used look like furniture you would see inside your dining room. And so I know at our home, for example, we just purchased teak furniture for our outdoor living area. And it's as heavy and as expensive as things you would see inside the home. And this is really common when you look at outdoor kitchens and outdoor living areas. You're seeing chairs and tables, and sometimes they might be metal, constructed of metal, but they look like wood. And they're very high-end products. They're beautiful.
Yeah, and that's kind of an important thing for having endurance, right? At the same level of quality inside and outside, and also the ability to handle year round. Now, Jack, you and I, when we were just talking casually, you reminded me that I'm in a market where we have good weather typically all year long, right? We may have one day of winter, and you get the T-shirt that says I survived the, whatever day it was, but you reminded me that in other markets like yours, you've got seasons. And so how does that come into play that might be different than what I'm used to, or those that are in warm climates are used to?
Yeah. So again, there's been a shift. I think up until, again, around the mid 90s or late 90s, we used to think of outdoor living in luxury homes or luxury communities basically was a really pretty deck with a nice view and maybe a pool. And that was kind of the extent of what that looked like. Since that time period, what we've seen evolve is people really enjoy being outside year round. And although in our market we have 4 seasons, they're not really extreme seasons. So yeah, we have a winter, we have a little snow here and there, but aside from those, novelty snow days, which we have come to love dearly, because our rule of thumb in Nashville is if schools are closed, we're off, But so we don't have a lot of snow. So basically we have 4 seasons outdoors. So you'll see a lot of covered porches. There's always a fire feature or typically a fire feature in luxury homes. So almost every covered porch has a full-on fireplace, either a gas fireplace or a full wood-burning fireplace with a gas starter. So it's easy to just sit down, click a button, instant fire. Fire pits have become extremely popular in outdoor spaces outside of the porch or deck area. Lots of folks have really nice, and these are very upgraded fire pits. It's not as a few rocks in a circle with a fire. These are really nice features. But the most interesting thing we've seen are more specific fire features. So we see these fire boxes out by the pool that are much more just kind of a visual thing, and fire tables, which have become very popular. We acquired one of those recently for our cabin in the mountains. I love it. It's so much fun. Which basically it's a big concrete table with a long gas fire on that table, so it produces a lot of heat, and it's a nice conversation piece, and it's just visually nice for photos and that sort of thing. So
Oh, sure
yeah,
is.
yeah. So again, with the chilly weather, you can enjoy the outdoors areas, and then you take it a step further. A lot of porches have either drop-down screens. I know screening obviously very important in Florida, but a lot of folks will have the automated drop-down screens, so we can drop the screens not just for pests, but also for shade, for blocking wind. And we've got specific wind blockers that you can have on your porches that drop down automatically. Curtains. These are curtains. There's some umbrella fabric or something similar typically that are made for outdoors, but they're heavy duty. They're expensive curtains, but you can pull those closed and create that nice warm ambient space even in January, the dead of winter in our market, if you have fire features, a fireplace, or what's become very popular are commercial grade heaters. A lot of folks have built-in commercial grade heaters like you would see in a restaurant or bar, even down in Florida.
Yeah.
You're seeing those in homes now. So these are all features you're seeing that are specific to the climate that we're in to allow us to enjoy outdoor living that you guys pretty much take for granted because you have it year round without nearly as much effort.
Right. Those fire features here are mostly for show.
Yeah, sure.
But it made me think of, I showed a home that was, I think they were in the $8 million range. And they had a beautiful swimming pool that was completely surrounded by the fire features, right? And so that is entirely just for ambiance. But when you were talking about the fire tables and that sort of thing, and it brought me back to the realization that it's about creating a space that you want to enjoy with other people. Right?
That's
now,
right.
yes, you can sit there by yourself, but it really is kind of a functionality of gathering around like an old-fashioned fire. And
I think it's almost akin, if you think about architecturally, the homes of the 70s. A lot of luxury homes in the 70s had conversation pits.
right?
So so we're creating that intimate conversation space, but instead of having a quote conversation pit with an indoor fireplace, we're having a fire feature and having a centerpiece to draw people in.
I think I like that one better than the conversation pit, right? I think I like that better. But I want to talk about swimming pools for a minute, because one of the things that we saw in the last couple of years is that places that weren't necessarily expectations for having swimming pools, where everybody was putting in a pool because they wanted that in their own home. There was a backlog across the country. And so in my market, the pool's always been kind of an expectation, but we see that ramped up in the upper tier. We see things like waterfalls and like artificial grottos and swim out areas and swim up bars and that kind of thing. What do you see in your area in those properties that have swimming pools, and how common is it?
Yeah, so pools aren't nearly as common here as they are in your market, obviously. I mean, it's very interesting when you go to really warm weather markets like, Florida, and you look at the West Coast and Nevada and these different areas, Texas, it's not necessarily even luxury homes that have pools. It's almost like a staple. As you fly into Dallas or you fly into Orlando, you look down and you see pools everywhere, pretty much. All
I do that too.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. So in our market, it's definitely the pools it would certainly be considered a luxury item. For us, it's typically a gunite pool, which is like it looks like concrete, but gunite is the product. Probably what would be would be a little different for us compared to warmer climates where you're warmer year round, is that oftentimes that custom built pool would also have a hot tub component, because we can use that a lot more here than you can perhaps in South Florida, for example. And so when they're pouring the pool, the shape of the pool, they'll add a hot tub. Oftentimes the hot tub itself will be elevated, so it creates a water feature. You can flip a button with an app or whatever, and then water cascades off of the hot tub into the pool. So, and oftentimes, the hot tub and the water feature itself is not just an aesthetic. Sometimes it has a purpose. For example, in some of our more urban communities and urban luxury homes, that water feature also obscures noise. So if you're in a more urban area, you have the sound of water instead of the sound of the city, so to speak. So it provides, has two functions.
That is a great point. And it's also a perfect opportunity to talk about how urban properties are addressing the really strong desire for that outdoor space and connection, right? So if you think about like a downtown area, condos, that sort of thing, if you had a little balcony to step out on in a midpoint price range, that was a real luxury. But what are you seeing? Because I know that you do some work in downtown Nashville or more urban areas. How are you seeing those properties addressing the need for outdoor connectivity?
So it depends on the type of property it is. For example, when we leave the podcast today, I'm going downtown to show one of our Four Seasons listings. The Four Seasons is a brand new condo and hotel in downtown Nashville. And so this particular Four Seasons has the private residences section. And when you're in the high-rise condos downtown, one of the main things I think that today's consumer is looking for is, again, that outdoor experience. So a lot of the condos don't necessarily have balconies, but buyers want to see a place that they can gather with family and friends outdoors without leaving their building. And so at the Four Seasons, which is a good example, they've got two different decking areas of that building that were designed for outdoor living. So you've got lots of outdoor grills, gathering spaces, a rooftop that pretty much lives like a private park, in addition to the things you obviously would expect, like the resort-style pool at the Four Seasons, which can be enjoyed both by the residents rather, as well as guests at the hotel. And so you got all these things, including fire features once again, and all these outdoor gathering spaces. So in the high rises, having those shared outdoor areas are really, really important. Conversely, when you look at single family residences in more urban areas, outdoor living is extremely important, but a lot of times these are vertical properties. They're on really small lots, akin to what you might see at waterfront lots in your market.
Mm-hmm.
For us, they're urban lots, and it's about being in the city or having a downtown view or something like that. So the lot itself is very small and oftentimes doesn't really give you much of a yard. So then it becomes important, where do we find our outdoor living? We put it on the rooftop.
Yep.
So single family homes, a lot of the luxury homes in downtown Nashville or adjacent to downtown will have a nice rooftop outdoor living area, sometimes covered, sometimes not covered, but with hot tubs and fire features, a lot of these same sorts of things that we were talking about earlier. I think that the component is a little bit different with urban properties. The rooftop experience is it's not just about the view, it's not just about being outside, but it's also about security.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a space up there that can't be accessed by the public. Someone can't step over your fence and into your outdoor area. So it's a very private space as well.
That's a great point. And we see a lot of the very same approaches in our downtown area, our urban areas, rooftop being really important. And there's a shift, I think, from the development side of things, where that rooftop space used to be the opportunity to create penthouse space, very exclusive space. And now it is more beneficial in a lot of cases to turn that into common rooftop area that is appealing for the entire building. And we also see it in the townhomes, the vertical single families and all of that. So I think that's not unique to either of our markets. But it makes me think of something that you said when we were just chatting before the podcast, and that was about how that outdoor decking, rooftop decking, has even infiltrated the Nashville honky tonk. Tell us what you were talking about there.
Well, let me define honky tonk, because a lot of folks, if they've not visited our area, they don't even know what we're talking about yet. So most middle markets or larger markets that any of our listeners might visit, if you visit downtown, oftentimes you'll have like a strip, if you will, with lots of bars and restaurants and entertainment venues, that sort of thing. In downtown Nashville, we have that too, and it's a huge draw for visitors and for locals too. And basically, we refer to all those bars as honky tonks. And the honky tonks are basically all these connected historic buildings along Lower Broadway. We call it Lower Broad, and in Second Avenue, that's sort of the anchor, if you will. And these are all live music venues. So they don't charge cover charges. Lots of folks gather and they go from one honky tonk to the next. And it's not just country music. It's all sorts of music. and each floor in the building might have different things to offer, different types of bands, different types of artists. But the really cool thing is that if you're going to be a honky tonk in downtown Nashville, to your point, Tami, you've got to have rooftop gathering spaces. It's all about the rooftop. So every one of the honky tonks has beautiful rooftop spaces. And if you're on one roof gathering, you can see everyone else gathering on adjacent roofs and across the street. And it's a whole lot of fun. And so Nashville, through the last 20 years, as more and more of the entertainment space has developed, more and more luxury real estate has developed right in downtown. We have more people living in downtown Nashville than in downtown Atlanta, which is significantly larger market. People love living downtown here in the Nashville area. And it's not necessarily being right in the middle of that whole, music scene, but being able to get to it easily and being able to get to the other entertainment venues. And it's just a lot of fun. So yeah, the outdoor experience is important on the retail side as well.
Yep. I know firsthand what Jack is talking about because I had the privilege to speak at a convention in Nashville just a few months ago. And I have to tell you that I enjoyed some time on Lower Broad and enjoyed those rooftop decks as well. So, and I got a t-shirt, right? So it's for real.
Of course you did. Yes.
So let's go in a slightly different avenue when we're talking about the connection to the outdoors. In an urban environment, I know that proximity to good pedestrian-friendly and bicycle-friendly amenities is really important, and that can kind of offset the lack of private personal space. But when we're talking about properties that are more suburban or even acreage, there's a really big demand for outdoor recreation in those places. And it's things like tennis courts, basketball courts, and of course, the ubiquitous pickleball now that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But what do you see as the demand for that? And are there other features that are coming into play when you've got enough property to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. That's the key thing, is the property to do that. Yeah, when you get into the suburb areas, it's interesting. The common denominator, I think, for all of our consumers when it comes to luxury real estate is walkability. They want to be able to get outside and walk safely and go somewhere and have a destination. So when you're talking about the urban properties we discussed a few moments ago, walkability might be walking to a coffee shop or perhaps a bar or restaurant, something of that nature. When you look at the suburbs, you're not going to walk to a coffee shop for the typical suburban estate. However, what has become very common over the last few years is walkability in terms of greenways. And so greenways are popping up in markets all over the country. I know you have them in your market, and they may be called something different, but for us, they're called greenways. It's basically a paved walking path where there's no motorized vehicles, and you can rollerblade, skate, skateboard, walk, ride bikes, and there's plenty of room. And for us, the key to making the greenways work is they connect neighborhoods throughout the counties, and they connect those neighborhoods to rivers and creeks and wooded paths and fun places to be outside. Oftentimes, city parks. They connect from neighborhoods to parks, so you can walk or ride a bike to see your kid play soccer, for example. So the Greenway system has become a huge point for a lot of our developers here in selling building lots, because they're making it a walkable experience and an outdoor experience once again. Shared common spaces and an easy way to get there.
Yeah, and European cities were so far ahead of us in that direction, but it is becoming something that's so important in all kinds of environments. And so it's about safety and security, right? So that you don't feel as though you're going to get hit by a car if you're using those places, and access. And I think that's become a really key theme, if you will, to everybody's world, is access, right? How can I gain access to the things that I enjoy, or that are just good for the soul? And so that Greenway concept in whatever form it's called, wherever it is, I think is really, really crucial. And I live in a city where there's a great deal of focus. The last several administrations have have had a great deal of focus on bicycle friendly, pedestrian friendly,
Sure. Yeah.
Lowering cars and that sort of thing. And so,
What do you call? I'm sorry, Tami. What do you call your greenways, or what do you call your paved walking paths in your market? Is there a name for it?
well, we have one significant system that's called the Pinellas Trail, right? So I think you probably hear it referred to more as trails,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for us, it's not hiking trails; it's pavement trails.
Yeah.
But they were able to secure a lot of public land and create this county-wide trail system that goes through all kinds of crazy places and neighborhoods and industrial areas and all of that to make the ability a seamless path from much further away than anyone would have ever expected. But then we also have a lot of focuses on the main traffic corridors of taking lanes away from cars and creating bicycle lanes that are separated and designated. And so that has made people much less reliant on cars, because in any urban environment, what's the number one crunch? Parking, right? Getting around.
Yep.
So the more that they take that off, and so that just contributes to an entirely different accessibility and residential appeal. But let's talk about the hiking trails, right? So if we shift to a totally different type of marketplace, like some of our listeners might be in, what do you hear about the importance of access to hiking trails or woods or forests or much larger scale natural environments? Is that something that that you see or hear?
Well, yeah, we've got a terrific park system in the greater Nashville area. So there's a lot of places where, some of our parks look more by definition like a forest than a park. So the trail systems are extensive. And you could get lost on some of those, and people do from time to time, unfortunately. But so we've got some terrific parks right in town, urban parks, if you will. And so when developers are creating these new homes or new communities, obviously, if they can put something that's walkable to one of these parks via a greenway or in close proximity, that's a huge selling feature. So yeah, it's a big deal. I think it's interesting because for a lot of our listeners, I hope that we're all looking at, when we're marketing our luxury listings, that we're thinking about this topic, which is why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Because we're not just selling the house. We're selling the lifestyle. We're selling the experience. And we're trying to convey what that lifestyle experience is, if you're the listing broker, to buyer brokers, and more importantly, to their buyers. And so when you look at the homes that we have available, whether it's your market or mine, or one of the many markets that our listeners, our members are in, a lot of us have some really wonderful properties that have access to a lot of these really cool outdoor experiences, but we've got to sell the lifestyle. We've got to sell the experience. And if we're not, we're missing the boat. But
yeah,
that's a really cool part of it, I think, don't you?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk about next to wrap us up today is let's bring this back to something tangible, a takeaway for those real estate professionals who are in the audience, is think very carefully about how important these things are to today's buyers, and think about how to reframe your marketing, right? Your ad copy, and even how you present your photos, in what order. I had to make a big shift when I started working with more buyers who were interested in whether it was a kitchen or whether it was an outdoor kitchen or whether it was outdoor features, water access. And I would get so frustrated when I had to scroll through 75 pictures with 12 shots of the laundry room to even get to where I could determine whether or not the lifestyle was a fit. So I think that we can all do a better job if we take a step back and don't be so focused on the brick and mortar and focus more on what's going to really appeal to a buyer and make them want to come see it.
Absolutely. And that's a mindset that I don't think everybody embraces equally. I think a lot of us, and I'm going to tie this back into the outdoor experience, the topic at hand, but I think a lot of us, when we're showcasing our luxury homes, that we're looking at the photography, and we're all using, top-notch photographers, but when we're looking at the photography, it's almost like a photographic journal of walking through the house, room to room. Here's the dining, here's the formal living, here's the what, and that's not really, I think, what the buyers are after. Of course, they want to know the basic floor plan or what the home has to offer, but I think when you focus more on the experience as a listing broker, and that experience includes this outdoor living and all these common areas and things in the area that aren't necessarily even part of the neighborhood, but part of the experience. That, I think, is what we're really trying to sell. So for me, how that translates, I might have, 100 or a couple hundred photos perhaps in some of these homes, more typically probably 75. But I want to boil that down to my 25 or 30 pictures, or maybe a few more of that luxury home, not cataloging every room in the house, but the experience. So to your point, Tami, it might start off with that front elevation photo or that aerial of the property that everybody kind of expects to see, which is the house. This is the house.
Yeah. Which one is it?
Which one is? Yeah, that's a good one. Which one is it? It's that one. It's beautiful. It's that one. After we passed that one, then I like to try to incorporate very quickly the experience. If there's a pool or a hot tub, or if adjacent to a park or a greenway, or there's some wonderful outdoor amenity, let's use some of those lifestyle photos intermixed with the home, and don't wait to go to 25 pictures before you see those.
Exactly.
Because really, when you're in a home, unless you're an architect or a builder, what most people really care about is what is the experience going to be like?
Right.
Like to live here.
Think about every showing that you've had where the buyer walks in the front door and you want to show them the house, and they invariably go straight out the back door, right? Straight out the back door. So I think we can learn from that, and I know that I am shifting up so that my first half dozen photos are the money ones, right? They're selling the lifestyle, they're selling the most engaging attributes of the property. So
that was go ahead. Sorry.
Nope. Go right ahead.
I was going to say, it reminds me, this is so funny. I know you've seen this, or I suspect you've seen it. And a lot of our listeners have. And if you haven't, you should. There was a video that was produced for a listing in Australia. And I think it's been more than 10 years ago, and it still gets a lot of traffic. It was a video produced by the listing broker showcasing a luxury home, and beautiful classical music playing. And it had really no intro, just you launches right into a video. It's all black and white, as I recall, and it shows these nice, slow, graceful camera movements, and you see a couple in bed, and I think he gets up first and walks through the house, and he works out, and he goes to the kitchen, gets some coffee, and she's still in bed, turning over and relaxing, and he's walking through the house and doing all these things, the gym, the pool, he gets in the pool, and does all this stuff. The interesting thing is, as he's walking through the house, he never bothers to get dressed. And so the video, have you seen this, Tami?
I have.
Talking about?
The
video show. Glimpses of him from the back.
Right. They never show the whole thing.
Yeah, glimpses from the back. And it seems so gratuitous until you get to the end of the video. It's so well executed. I'm not recommending this, by the way. This was done really well. I doubt we could replicate it very easily. But basically, it gets to the end of the video where the doorbell rings, and this same guy comes to the front door. I think he hands keys to the guy at the door and then walks down the driveway, never still putting his clothes on, and you never see another house out the driveway. And the real estate broker looks at the camera, and this is the first time you hear him speaking. He talks about the address of this property being so private, you don't even have to get dressed to walk around the property. And it was just so funny that the whole point of the video was to show all the amenities of the home, the outdoor living, and the fact that it's so private, getting dressed as an option. I thought, man, that was just incredibly well done, but probably not to be mimicked.
Wow. Now that is definitely something to leave the listeners thinking about as we wrap up this episode. And I know that both you and I are gonna enjoy wrapping up and heading out into the beautiful outdoors and helping some folks find some outdoor amenities in their next homes. So I want to thank you, Jack, as always. And thanks to all of you who are listening for joining us on this episode of A State of Mind The Art of Selling Luxury Real Estate. If you're interested in learning more about the Institute, you can find more at luxuryhomemarketing.com. If you like what you just heard, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Thanks so much for listening.